My son got trapped in a fire. My husband is a retired firefighter. I didn't call him. I just ran straight to the fire station and asked for help. In my past life, I begged my husband over the phone to come back and lead a team to save our son. But while waiting, his foster sister committed suicide because he ditched her for our son. My husband looked at her shattered body, calmly held her funeral, without shedding a tear. Then on my birthday, he killed my entire family. He threw me on the train tracks, letting the train run over me. Just a fire, he said. The brat could have escaped himself. If I didn't save him, Linda wouldn't have died. You all killed Linda for that brat. None of you deserve to live. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day my son got trapped in the fire. My husband was happily traveling globally with his foster sister. But upon returning, he was crying and begging for my forgiveness. Clara, there's no extra rescue team to fight this fire. Please stop lingering here. As soon as I rushed into the fire station, Mike kicked me out. Mike is Felix's longtime buddy, now the fire chief. When I realized I had come back to life, I ran straight to the fire station across from our complex for help. To my surprise, Mike said nothing. He turned me and my mom away at the door. My mom was so anxious that she was sweating bullets, breaking free from the security guard's grip and shouting, "Are you kidding me? How can such a big fire station not have anyone to put out a fire? There's no building on fire nearby. It's a workday. There should be firefighters here." Because of Felix, my mom knew a bit about the fire station. She immediately realized Mike was lying. Mike sneered, "I'm the chief here. Do you know better than me if we have people or not?" Even when he said that, my mom still couldn't believe it. How can a chief be unable to gather firefighters? Are you really going to stand by and do nothing? You have the authority to call in other districts' firefighters. They would rush to help as soon as they heard about a fire, but you're unmoved. Mike frowned. I respect you as an elder, but this is the fire station. I'm not here for you to criticize. My mom clutched her chest in anger. If you still don't act, Mike, I'll file a complaint against you. Mike coldly retorted, "You have no grounds to complain about me. At this time, you should be at the kindergarten. You don't seem in much of a hurry anyway, so stop wasting public resources." After saying this, Mike gave me a cold stare, full of disgust. "Clara, don't think just by bringing your mom here, you'll fool us into sending people with you for some drama. Come on, don't panic over a little fire. If you leave now, I'll pretend nothing happened. Otherwise, I'll have to ask you to leave." With that, several uniformed firefighters surrounded my mom and me. My bodyguards also jumped in. The scene became a chaotic mess. A couple of the firefighters were my husband's former colleagues. They looked at me with disdain. "Clara, when Felix was with us, you always disrupted his work. Now you're making up stories to deceive us. This is too much. The fire station isn't your playground." I was shoved to the ground. Suddenly my mom's phone rang. It was a call from my dad. His voice trembled with urgency and anger. "Why aren't the firefighters here yet? The fire's getting bigger, and I can't get in through the stairway." My son's cries broke intermittently through the call, causing my heart to race. I took a few deep breaths, staring into Mike's eyes, pleading, "Please, Mike. My son is trapped at home, and the fire is spreading. My dad can't get in to save him. The only chance to save him is if the firefighters put out the fire. Don't let personal grudges endanger lives." Maybe because I never begged anyone before, a hint of surprise crossed Mike's face. In the next moment, he was bent over laughing. "Has anyone ever told you, you're a great actress?" I almost fell for it. "But did you see a fire alarm call coming in? If a fire really broke out, someone would have called 911 long ago. Who would come directly to the fire station to ask for firefighters?" His tone grew colder, his eyes filled with unveiled malice. "No one calls because the fire started internally. You can't see it from outside. Plus, it's a workday, so not many are home. I took leave because my son was sick. When Felix told me you'd come causing trouble, I didn't believe him. Now I understand why he despises you. You concoct lies, cooperate with your parents for a show, and have the gall to curse your son trapped in a fire. Unbelievable." Stunned, I widened my eyes. It never crossed my mind that, given a second chance, even though I didn't ruin his time with his foster sister, he pre-warned Mike, cutting off my escape. Such a cold and ruthless person. He couldn't care less about his son's life or death. My mom's crying shattered my thoughts. I dared not anger Mike. I had to appease him to dispatch a team to save my son. Thinking that, amid the guards' puzzled gazes, I fell to my knees. Continuing to argue would just endanger my son. The closest station was the only chance to save him unharmed. Felix had influence at the station. But today, the day of the fire, he was with Linda in Xinjiang. In my previous life, when I found out my son was trapped, I immediately called my husband. He was a retired firefighter. One call from him, and a team would have been dispatched. After begging him, he finally called and rushed back to save the fire. Just as he returned and rescued our son, his phone rang. Linda thought he had abandoned her and committed suicide on the tracks. Silent, he handed me our unconscious son, then dashed out the door. He showed no emotion when he saw Linda's shattered body. He took her ashes home and held a grand funeral for her. After that, he never mentioned Linda again. He hugged me tightly, trying to comfort me. She's nothing compared to my son, who shares my blood. Don't blame yourself for her death. I naively thought our fractured relationship was finally mending, that he wouldn't leave me and my son for Linda again. But on my son's birthday, Felix turned on the gas, poisoning the whole family. I'll never forget the sight of my parents and son being consumed by flames. Felix killed the whole family, leaving me to watch my loved ones die. He chained me up and dragged me to the train tracks, letting the wheels crush my limbs. His eyes were terrifyingly cold, yet he held Linda's urn gently. Clara, you think everything's fine now that Linda's dead? Why did you use our son's life to force me back? If you hadn't resorted to such petty jealousy, Linda wouldn't have thought of ending her life. You knew I only saw Linda as a sister. She grew up alone, and after you brought her home, you treated her poorly. I took care of her because I couldn't stand it, and you killed her out of jealousy. Did you really think getting my parents and son to talk to me would change anything? They all died because of you. I want you to feel as hopeless as Linda did. Go to hell and repent. I was stripped naked, forced to crawl on the tracks like an animal, feeling the fear and the powerful impact of the wheels. The pain of my limbs being crushed stayed with me, my heart pounding, struggling to breathe under the pressure. In this new life, I tried desperately to find firefighters. But can I still not change the fate of losing my family? The memory of my son's anguished cries sent shivers down my spine. Ignoring others, I crawled to Mike's feet, grabbing his pants, refusing to let go. Please, I beg you. You're kind-hearted and care about people. You won't let my son die, will you? As a mother, nothing hurts more than something happening to your child. You have kids, so you understand my feelings right now. Please save him. My forehead was stained with blood. My mom yelled in shock, trying to help me up. Clara, stand up. We kneel to the heavens, the earth, our parents. If he won't, we'll ask someone else. She cried, desperately shouting to the crowd. Does it really come to begging on our knees just to ask for help? The firefighters exchanged glances, wavering under the crowd's pressure. A life is on the line. Clara wouldn't joke about her son like that, they muttered. Let's gear up and go fight the fire. Ridiculous. Mike's face burned with anger from being challenged. As the command leader, you're supposed to follow my orders, not listen to a woman's lies. Claire's a habitual liar. If she hadn't pushed the person Felix cared about most into exile, he wouldn't have married her under duress. Mike's face turned cold with disdain. She's malicious, deceiving Felix's parents into loving her. Now she's pretending her son is trapped inside. For all we know, she set the fire herself to draw Felix back. The crowd fell silent, unsure what to do. His words made me realize how foolish I'd been, feeling a deep sadness. Felix saw me as despicable, scheming just to marry him, even making his brother believe I was so cruel. Before I could speak, my mom answered a call, tears streaming down her face. Clara, your dad says our grandson has stopped responding. I dragged Mike back to the complex. Flames engulfed the building while residents stood gasping in shock. My eyes were red as I clutched my father, crying out, "Where's Star? Why isn't he out?" My father, trembling, hid his face and sobbed. Cold sweat pooled in my hands as I stared at the exit, ready to rush in. But my mom pulled me back, kneeling before the firefighters. You all have families, you're good people. Please save my grandson. If you put out the fire, he still has a chance. You can't just let him burn to death. The younger firefighters showed hesitation, burdened by the scene. Captain, one cautiously spoke, the fire's right at our doorstep. How can you not be anxious? Ignoring their hesitation, they prepared to save the boy. Many were moved by my son's cries, but Mike coldly closed the safety line, barring anyone from acting. He spoke callously, Clara. Impressive how you've rallied the neighborhood into your act. You probably gave them gifts. The kid up there, who knows who he is, you could have hired him. No wonder Felix warned me to be on guard with you. I was furious, raising my voice. Mike, are you blind? It's fine if you dislike me, but you can't just watch a kid on the brink of doom without helping. You're a firefighter, don't you remember your duty? The neighbors were also fed up, pointing and yelling. Are you really a firefighter? If you're not here to fight the fire, get out of the way. Why stop others from saving people? We can't deal with your personal grudges, but it's our houses burning down. Captain, you've really messed up this time. No one jokes about lives. Don't stand in our way. Yeah. They couldn't bear to watch the kid forced onto the balcony by the flames, and they called out Mike. Mike frowned hard, putting away his mocking smile. He was hesitating, thinking of taking down the caution tape and calling in the fire brigade, when Felix called him first. His expression turned cold after the call ended, as he looked me up and down. Clara, he said, you're still trying to fool me? Felix just called. He said you're likely riling people up to be on your side. That kid up there is an AI imitation. The real kid is in Xinjiang with severe altitude sickness, unconscious. You're staging this drama to force Felix back, and you'll personally pay for all the losses. He finished talking and started to leave with his crew. My heart sank, collapsing into my mom's arms in despair. As everyone else stood unsure, we heard the blaring sirens behind us. Like spotting a lifeline, I grabbed the lead firefighter and begged on my knees, please, my son's been trapped in the fire for over 10 minutes. You have to save him. The firefighter nodded grimly, leading his crew inside with high-pressure hoses. Mike tried to stop them again. What station are you guys from? Acting without orders, get out now, don't interrupt our work. Before he finished, he got kicked hard to the ground. The city center fire chief punched him, shouting, you useless fool. Such a big fire, and you pretend not to see? If someone dies, you'll pay. Mike winced in pain. There can't be anyone alive up there, it's fake. You've all been tricked by this woman. The chief glared at him. What, you lost your mind? Who'd be dumb enough to lose their home in some scripted act with a stranger? You're not gonna keep your captain position. Without looking back at Mike, the chief rushed into the flames, carrying out my son, who was covered in injuries. Mike, if anything happens to this child, it's all on you. Mike paled seeing the child so badly hurt. He stumbled over an apology. I'm sorry, sister. I looked at him, eyes cold. Mike, what made you think I'd do anything for my goals? Fine, if anything happens to my son, you won't get away with it. Mike always thought Felix married me due to parental pressure. Felix and I grew up together. The three of us were close. But when I took pity on Linda and brought her home, Felix began drifting, paying her more attention. His folks thought Linda wasn't a match, offering her $3 million to leave. Everyone thought I meddled to send Linda away, so she wouldn't take Felix. When Felix learned Linda married and had kids abroad, he finally married me, with family encouragement, appearing as the devoted couple to outsiders. But to his friends, I was the villain who ruined him and Linda. Yet countless nights he'd hold me tenderly, promising I was his true love. I believed him, thinking he was over Linda, but his promises were all lies. Linda tried escaping a crazy ex-husband, getting back in touch with Felix, hiding in a villa he built for her. Even with our son born, he didn't hide their time together. Only I was left in the dark. When her ex found her, he sent people to kidnap her, roping in Felix's company. I begged my parents to bail him out, even risking myself to save Linda. After that, Felix calmed down, and I advised him to act wisely. He angrily accused me. You're just like other jealous women. Even mom and dad are fooled by you. Linda and I are innocent. She's just a naive kid. And you left her homeless, almost back in the devil's hands. I hide her so you'd stop your wickedness. His words left me baffled and shocked. He thought I was behind Linda's kidnapping, So I tried discussing it with him, figuring how any of this was my fault. Linda called crying, scared and alone. Felix abruptly kicked me out of the car on the highway, never speaking kindly to me again. Memories stabbed at my heart, leaving me lost. Everyone believed I was the villain tearing apart Felix and Linda's perfect union. Only I naively believed Felix's love was genuine. I deserved it, not knowing who he truly was. And my poor son caught in the mess. In the hospital, he lay unconscious for days, with no signs of waking. The chief's timely rescue made sure his vitals were stable, but the head injury left him without awareness. Doctors hinted, if he remained unconscious, he could become a vegetable, never waking up. Even if miraculously waking, brain damage could mean he might never fully recover, possibly dying in his sleep. Tears fell as I watched my weakened son. I blamed myself, thinking if only I'd been home sooner, he wouldn't be hurt. Mike looked distressed, unable to get through on his phone, and finally spoke up quietly. Sis-in-law, me and Felix were on a mission overseas a while back when we met a brain specialist. He's dealt with cases like our kids before, and has a high chance of waking him up. The attending doctor's eyes lit up, super excited. Are you talking about that top doc from Country A? I heard he's hard to get and doesn't show up often. Are you sure about this? Mike answered firmly. I'll do whatever it takes to get him here, even if I have to beg on my knees. Mike wasn't just a big deal in the fire department because of his skills. He genuinely believes in serving the people. He regretted holding me back and missing the best chance to rescue our son. He's cried asking for my forgiveness more times than I can count, standing vigil by our son's hospital bed day and night. Now he's volunteering to bring the specialist, driven by guilt. After Mike left, I called my parents to give them a heads up. The horror of our last life where the whole family was trapped in a fiery mess still haunts me. I told them to find a safe place and stay away from Felix and Linda's issues. Felix killed his own parents for Linda. I can't risk my parents being threatened. If Felix just wants to be with Linda, once my son wakes up, I'll divorce him and disappear from his life. Felix's phone won't connect. I can only wait for him to sign the divorce papers. Just as I was feeling anxious, Mike called to say the specialist was on the return flight with him. I was thrilled and hugged my mom tight, telling them to take care of our son and head to the airport. Unexpectedly, Mike and the specialist arrived early, but got cornered into a lounge. Mike, you brought the brain expert. Let's go. I froze. That voice was way too familiar, and I started shaking. Felix. He's back. Mike refused without hesitation. What's the point of going with you? Our boy needs the specialist's help. I'm not letting you intercept him like this. What can be wrong with the kid? Is this another one of Clara's lies about him being brain damaged from a fever? Linda had headaches after hitting her head while hiking, so the specialist needed to see her first. Felix argued endlessly, but Mike wouldn't budge and insisted on leaving with the specialist. Felix got desperate, grabbing the specialist's arm. The specialist, who didn't understand, looked increasingly annoyed with their tug of war. Seeing he was about to storm out, I rushed over. Please wait, master. Clara, why are you haunting me all the way here? Felix sneered when he saw me, and his expression darkened. Don't miss a chance to hurt Linda. Let Mike take the specialist with me. I couldn't take it. I laughed angrily. Felix, who's your wife anyway? Mike brought the expert for our son. What gives Linda the right to steal even this? Linda worried you'd be heartbroken if you couldn't find me, so she rushed downhill and got hurt. She's already frail. This made it worse. You're going to give in. I shot him a furious glare before Mike stepped between us. Felix, think about the situation. Our child was trapped in the fire because you refused to let us save him. Then, the door frame hit his head when he was rescued. He's been unconscious since being rushed to the hospital. This specialist is our only hope. Felix looked surprised but coldly smiled at him. Mike, are you deluded or playing along? The kid's all fine at daycare. His teacher even called today about how hyper he is. How could he possibly be in a coma at the hospital? Mike was beet red with frustration. You really don't get it. Looks like I was right. You care more for Linda than your own son. If you don't believe it, come to the hospital and see who's on the bed. Felix's face turned rigid. He always believed I was just putting on a show. using our son to trick him into leaving Linda to come back to me. In our past life, right after he saved our son, he threw him to me to go see Linda. He didn't know our son had a bleeding brain and woke up only after a lot of effort. Mike wouldn't lie to his old friend, no reason at all. Thinking this, Felix's face changed, a grip of unease creeping in. Take me to him. Right then Linda grabbed her head in pain, tears in her eyes tugging at his sleeve. Brother, it's my fault for dragging you on that trip, missing the news about him trapped in the fire. It's all on me that the child was hurt. If you were home that day, he wouldn't have cracked his head open. Let the expert see me first. Her words made it sound like my son was taking her personal doctor or something. Pale and fragile-looking Linda had Felix panicking, hugging her tight, silly girl. Don't blame yourself. He got hurt because he was asking for it, just like Clara with all the lies. None of this was your doing. If Clara actually cared, she'd have stormed into the fire to save him, instead of putting on a pitiful act here. He dropped his smile, coldly saying to Mike, let me say it again, Linda goes first. After settling the specialist, Mike gritted his teeth. Felix, you're out of your mind. Linda doesn't seem critical. The best hospital could help her. Why rob a child's sole chance? Is he even your son? Dragging this out, and he'll end up as a vegetative patient. Vegetative people can live well, anyway. He'll wake up eventually. Felix's expression was dark, but Linda is delicate, can't let her fall ill. It's Clara's obsession with Linda bringing karma on the child. I glared at him, demanding coldly, what did I do to make you hate me and our son so much? When Felix heard my words, he gave a cold snort. Don't think I won't find out that you were sneaky trying to mess with Linda. You really think you can fool everyone? I frowned. How come I didn't know I hated Linda that much? Felix was about to say more, but Linda grabbed his hand and interrupted. Please don't. I have such a headache. It's been over 6 months since I went abroad, and I've let it go. I think Clara only did it because she loves you too much. Just let it go. I watched her face closely, catching a brief flash of guilt. I narrowed my eyes, feeling like she was hiding something. But her pitiful tone convinced Felix the first was the one bullying her. Felix gave me a sharp look, then kissed her cheek gently. Linda, don't worry. As long as I'm here, Clara has no way to hurt you. He glared at me with anger. Clara, Linda is your sister you personally brought back. How could you be so heartless to leave her abroad all alone, letting her be targeted and forced into marriage? And then even have my parents push me to marry you. I found his accusations ridiculous. Such nonsense really floored me. He claimed Linda was naive, unfamiliar with the world's evil ways, which made her a target. In a foreign country with no family to rely on, a young girl like Linda stumbled into a dangerous slum and got hurt. One night, a man broke into her shabby shelter and took advantage of her. He took her back to his estate after that. Once their child was born, the man showed his true colors, not letting her leave the house at all. Her freedom was restricted, and their child was tortured to death by the man. After losing her value, he abandoned her back in the slums, where she was harassed by homeless people. Only after much hardship did she reach out to Felix to bring her back. As Felix continued, he angrily pointed at me. Clara, I've really underestimated you. Using your family's power to toy with others, don't you feel guilty? He looked dead serious, like I was some villain. If I didn't know better, I'd question my own sanity. Linda trembled slightly, pulling Felix to stop him from speaking more. Even she realized how absurd this web of lies was. I sniffled, trying to hold back tears and brush away my dark thoughts. Felix, I thought you, of all people, would understand me since we grew up together. But here you are, believing her unverified stories and painting me as the villain. She demanded $3 million to go abroad herself. Then she targeted a rich local guy, drugged him, and that's how she ended up with his kid. Hearing this, Felix looked shocked. He turned to Linda in disbelief. Linda's face went pale, tears welling in her eyes. I didn't. That man broke in while I was asleep. She glanced at me, making even me question if I orchestrated it all along. Of course, that's what Felix thought too. He clenched his jaw. Clara, Linda's not like you, materialistic. She's pure and wouldn't hurt herself for such schemes. She's always had eyes only for me. No way she'd fall for someone else. You're as dumb as a brick. I laughed through tears, explaining everything clearly. Linda, after going abroad, lived lavishly, quickly burning through 3 million. Used to the good life, she wouldn't accept falling into poverty. Spotting a local rich kid, she schemed to get close to him, drugging his drink, and luring him to her temporary residence. Waking up, he was going to pay her off, but she threatened him with a possible pregnancy. With eyes watching him everywhere, the kid had no choice but to keep her in his mansion. Linda wasn't satisfied, constantly provoking his fiancée. This got the kid punished by his family and stripped of his heir status. After the child was born, she noticed the kid partying and threatened him, but she actually smothered her child to death before sneaking back home. It was all to gain Felix's attention and shift him back to her. Shut up. More nonsense. I paused, silenced by Felix's furious look. You just made all that up. So fake. Linda's been through so much since childhood. How could she just sell out for money? You must be misleading me. Linda also looked up, pitifully agreeing. Clara, I've forgiven your past actions, but why accuse me now? Are you sure it's not you orchestrating things? But I can't let you falsely accuse me. For that, we need someone else to reveal the truth. I dialed a number. Soon Linda's friend and preschool director, Candy, arrived. Linda looked nervously panicked, her voice shaking. Candy, why are you here? Linda then composed herself, speaking casually. Candy, didn't expect you'd know I'm back. Are you here just for me? Funny joke. I snorted. Linda's smile froze. She was so terrified by you. She's been plagued by anxiety, almost jumped off a building. Candy, eyes full of hatred, shattered Linda's facade. I thought you really cared about the kids. That's why I lied to the dad, saying the child's fine. He was halfway to death's door. And I regret helping you with your dirty deeds every night. Candy and Linda had known each other for years, so Candy's coherent, evidence-backed account left no room for doubt. Everything she said matched exactly what I did. Candy blamed herself so much for almost making a big mistake that she couldn't sleep day or night. Felix suddenly felt a chill all over. His face turned dark as he grabbed Linda by the neck and questioned her. Is what Candy said true? I can't believe you're so vicious. Not only did you make me misunderstand my wife, but you also wanted to harm my son. Linda's face turned purple as she clutched his hand tightly and cried. I didn't. I was just scared you would worry. And I didn't even know the child was trapped in the fire. I've been alone and miserable since I was a child. I hate this kind of hardship. Leaving you made me want to die. Besides, the child was rescued, wasn't he? How could you think so poorly of me, because of some outsider's words? Felix hesitated and released his grip, a trace of pain and reluctance flashing in his eyes. The next second, Candy exclaimed, I suspected at the time why you wanted me to call Felix. You surely knew his son didn't go to daycare. Maybe you even knew there would be a fire. I turned pale and quickly grabbed Candy's hand. Why are you so sure? What did Linda do? Candy tried to recall. She mentioned that Linda called the daycare to say her child wouldn't be there that day. And then she asked Candy to tell Felix that his son was doing fine. She vaguely felt something was wrong at the time, but she didn't think too much and did what Linda asked. I remember Linda said there was only the kid at home for that period. She assured me nothing would happen. And weirdly, she told me not to mention it to anyone. I suddenly remembered Linda coming to the house before the fire, saying she was ungrateful, but wanted to visit her parents. Strangely, she spent most of that day alone in the kitchen. Oh right, she asked me if a gas leak could cause an explosion. I was shocked, standing stiffly in place. I looked at Linda with a stiff neck. Her eyes were full of panic she could no longer hide. Furious, I rushed to her and slapped her hard, grabbing her hair and shouting, Linda, you deserve to die. Linda shrank into Felix's embrace in fear. Mike hurriedly held me. Clara, stay calm. Murder is a crime. We live under the rule of law now. No matter how mad I am, the law has to deal with Linda. I couldn't afford to waste myself in the process. I couldn't leave my son Xing Xing. After taking a few deep breaths, I freed myself from Mike's grip, forcing myself to calm down. I looked coldly at Felix. After all this, do you still think Linda is that innocent and kind girl you thought she was? Felix's face turned ashen, and in fury, he squeezed Linda's chin. You left with money for abroad but still wanted to harm my son? Realizing there was no turning back, Linda lashed out desperately. You hated Clara and her child, remember? If I hadn't left, she wouldn't have had a chance to marry you. I never forgot you. Was that my fault? If you had been determined to be with me from the beginning, we wouldn't be here today. That's when I understood. After Linda returned to the country, she thought Felix still loved her and begged him to leave with her. But Felix rejected her, smiling and saying he has a lovely son and can't leave me. It was precisely because of that line that Linda shifted her killing intent from me to my son. Felix, blame yourself for wavering between Clara and me. You wanted it all, and ended up in this mess. I only wanted you to choose decisively, so then without that burden, you'd finally see yourself clearly. Felix's mind was a mess, his face blanched, and he slid down to the wall. Clara's right. I've been so damn stupid. I believed your lies without suspicion, and you still wanted to hurt my son. Linda was pierced by his words and emotionally embracing Felix softly said, You always loved me, didn't you? I don't care if you've been with other women, even if there's a child. You said you didn't even like Clara. Now that everything is out, she won't forgive you. You can be with me forever now. Isn't that what you wanted? In your dreams. Felix's expression turned vicious. His eyes bore a chilling coldness as he squeezed Linda's neck again. You're not fit to be my wife. Linda's strength was no match for a strong man. She soon struggled to breathe. As Felix let go, she collapsed on the ground, coughing violently. A stream of blood surged up and spewed out. She gazed at Felix with disbelief. Felix, you're heartless. Mike let out a heavy sigh and immediately called an ambulance to send her to the hospital. In the lounge, it was just Felix and me left, staring at each other silently. He opened and closed his mouth for a while, and then he hung his head, trying to reach out to me, but I sidestepped swiftly. His eyes full of hurt and regret, Felix said, I know I was wrong. I deserve it. Can you forgive me? I looked calmly into his eyes. I pulled out the pre-signed divorce papers and threw them in his face. Felix, let's get a divorce. Felix trembled as he picked up the light papers, his face turning white. No way. I won't agree to a divorce. I know you hate me, but please give me a chance to make amends. I'll make sure our son wakes up healthy. Just don't give up on me. I let out a scoff. Felix, understand this. You abandoned me and our child. Divorce is the most dignified way. I don't want it to get to a point where no one finds peace. Didn't you always complain I was too controlling? Now you're free. Please respect my decision. Felix had often blamed me for being too possessive, making him uncomfortable. I had tried changing, focusing more on our son, and meddling less in his affairs. But now, with him begging for us to reconcile, it's just pitifully absurd. I can't control him, and I don't want to anymore. In panic, Felix held my hands gently. I want you to take charge. I won't complain anymore. I just want to be with you forever. No way. I'll just assume I loved the wrong person. I yanked my hand away, emphasizing every word. Hearing my son had woken up, I rushed back to the hospital. Felix followed me to see our son, hoping to use him to beg for my forgiveness. But to his surprise, our son didn't recognize him, shrinking away in fear in my arms, crying out for him to leave. Felix refused to agree to a divorce. I coldly mocked him, telling him if he didn't want a divorce, we could take it to court. In this situation, he'd lose everything. Later, my in-laws paid a lot of money to specialists, pleading with them to fully heal my son. They tried to make amends by giving 2/3 of their assets to me and my son, even taking me as their goddaughter. In less than 2 weeks, my son recovered and was discharged. Our godparents personally took us home. To my surprise, Felix was there, kneeling and asking for my forgiveness. He was confused and asked, Clara, we've known each other since we were kids. You know I only love you. Now the son's well. Why are you so heartless, divorcing and not letting me reunite with him? I stared at him silently, then said coldly, because you killed my whole family. Even my own parents he could kill. How could I continue with him? As soon as I said it, my godparents were shocked and immediately cut ties with Felix. He fell to the ground, his eyes full of disbelief. So that was it. Felix, I want to kill you, but I still have Star. Take care of yourself. With that, I left with Star, not looking back. Felix stayed frozen in place, then suddenly broke down in tears. Moments later, he said goodbye to his parents and vanished. Linda went to prison, and I thought she'd spend her life there. But unexpectedly, Felix broke her out and took her abroad. He left her in a slum, watching as she was humiliated to death. When I heard the news, I felt nothing. Linda's death didn't match my past life's suffering. Felix couldn't bring himself to hurt Linda directly. If he truly wanted revenge for me, he should have humiliated her like I was, stripping her and listening to her screams. Only making her life unbearable could have satisfied my anger. Linda was dead, and Felix planned to live in anonymity. But then I received a strange video request. Linda's ex-husband had tied Felix to a metal pole, dousing him in gasoline. He asked in broken Chinese if I wanted to save Felix, saying he'd release him if I agreed. In Felix's terrified gaze, I shook my head lightly. What goes around comes around. Even fate wanted to deal with him. After our son lost his memory, I never mentioned Felix again, fearing he'd be hurt by any reminder. So, I chose to keep it a secret. Not long after, the flames consumed Felix, reducing him to ashes. Our godparents put up a tombstone for him, and I took our son to see it once. I didn't understand why I did it, but I couldn't believe Felix would suffer over Linda's life. As for why it all happened, I didn't want to search any further. As a firefighter, Felix caused many deaths and fires, leaving restless souls. Maybe it was karma. From now on, Star takes my last name and grows up healthy and happy. However, the world is without Felix. The end.